No mai haere mai, welcome, welcome, welcome. Kia ora koutou. Ko takitimu te maunga, ko aparima te awa, te ara a kiwa te moana, ko takitimu, urawa ko urua, rawa ko wairoa, rawa ko viola, rawa ko lady egadia, rawa ko mermaid toku waka. Ko kaitahu kati mamoe waitaha toku iwi, ko Clan Gordon aho. Ko takutai o te titi te marae, no Otepoti tuku kāinga anaine, ko Paul tuku mātua, ko Glenys tuku whaia, ko Fiona tuku ikua. Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so lovely to be here to share this kaupapa with you. I'd firstly like to acknowledge the land I stand upon as belonging to Kaitahu, Kati Māmoe and Waitaha, and that we acknowledge Te Tiriti o Waitangi and He Whakaputanga o Te Rangatiratanga o Nutirini as founding documents of Aotearoa, and that Māori never ceded sovereignty to the Crown in this process, and that we operate on colonised and stolen land. Kia ora. It was really important for me to introduce myself with my pipiha, as it places me here, in this space, on this land. I acknowledge my privilege and my whakapapa lines, and the layers within, which connect me to this land that I am kaitiaki of. And as I place these layers between my mountain, Takitimu, my river, Aparima, Te Ara Akiwa, the waters that surround the lower South Island, the mini waka that brought my tupuna to these lands, the iwi and clans I associate with, my marae, which I got to sleep on for the first time this year, and it was beautiful. Otepoti, where I grew up and is now my home, my father Paul, my mother Glenys, and of course, myself. My human body connects to this whenua. Acknowledging te tiriti and he whakaputanga is of importance as we're speaking about an inclusive circular system which accepts papatuanuku as an integrated part of the whole system and not just a resource to be profited from. The doctrine of discovery has operated under the economy of destruction, which has had a detrimental effect on our whenua and our people. Indigenous peoples' lands guard over 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity, and it is important that we utilise a holistic systems approach to inform our next phase of anthropogenic development. I'm personally interested in radical systems change, but I recognise the importance of truly understanding the existing system so we can find the gaps before we can take action and disrupt the system to implement circular processes. Just like to share a little whakatoki. Whatu naro naro te tangata toitu te whenua. As man disappears from sight, the land remains. But to be able to dismantle the systems, I believe we have to do so from a space of aroha and heart-centered whole body awareness, being present within yourself while doing this work. I'd like to introduce you to a short breath exercise, which is a tool that you can take away with you today. So I invite you to make yourself comfortable, whether you are standing or sitting. And I invite you to close down your eyes and just take a moment and notice how you're feeling now. We're going to take 3 breaths together, and on your out breath, we're going to make a ha sound, H-A, ha. So take a nice deep breath in from your diaphragm and breathe out. Ha. And again. Ha. And once more. Ha. Just take another moment to notice how you're feeling now. Open your eyes at your leisure. This breath provides us an avenue of connection to ourselves, our hearts, our minds, and it presences us within our surroundings of papatuanuku, It also raises our oxytocin level, which has been described as the love hormone. Who doesn't want more of that in their lives? So you can use this tool anytime you need a little pick-me-up. It's a little gift for you today. But let's get into the systems. The take, make, waste system. We all know it. Let's not focus too much on that linear part of it, but instead think about how we can design it into a circle. I want to introduce you to 4 frameworks that I have journeyed with over the last few years to understand the principles and practical applications of zero waste system design. The first one you might be familiar with. It is the ABCD model from the Natural Step program. This provides me with a visioning and planning tool. And as you can see there, we look to the future, we vision, we figure out what we're doing here in our present, and we design creative solutions to get there. The second is Te Whare Tapawha. This comes from Te Ao Māori, and it is utilising the representation of a whare or house as a whole system with well-being as the core foundation. And you can see that the well-being covers physical, spiritual, mental and emotional, and family and social, alongside the land and, of course, connection to source. Theory is the next one, and this informs my self-awareness and the presence that I hold with myself and my surroundings of Papa Tuanuku. And lastly, the disruptive design methodology from the Unschool gives me an actionable process of implementation and facilitation. These frameworks allow me the possibility of operating in new ways to explore innovation, creativity, and connection from a well-being perspective. So I've utilised these frameworks through my zero waste journey, implementing circular systems into my mahi, but namely my zero waste textile brand, Senorita Osumo, and our charity Stitch Kitchen, and more recently, Res.Awesome, and we'll come back to these. But these frameworks are important to me because 12 years ago, I had a huge wake-up call and became unwell as a result of solvents in my workplace and a hereditary nerve condition, which I also have. This disruption caused me to reevaluate my life, and in recognizing that well-being was really needed as a foundation for me to survive and thrive. I had to participate in life in completely different ways, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I started my journey by creating Senorita Osumo as a vision of wellness and self-sovereignty. Society had influenced me to be operating from an absencing space, and I felt more alive operating from creating presence. So this is the full version of the Theory U framework, which shows you the destruction pathway. And I'm sure we actually all recognise it and may have spent some time here ourselves and or can see how this is operating in our society as the current space. So in 2011, I redeveloped Senorita Osumo into a zero waste fashion label. And this came following 3 years at Otago Polytechnic Design School, which left me disenfranchised with the fashion system in its wasteful ways, including environmental, social, and human injustices. I was shown a representation of the inherent disconnection we have with Papa Tuanuku and the source of these valuable resources from the clothes we all wear every day. I felt the need to speak out about these injustices in 2015 and wove a korowai from t-shirts for the Robbie Burns statue in the centre of my town. This sits in the octagon. This was placed on his shoulders for the week of April the 24th as ID Dunedin Fashion Week and Fashion Revolution Week coincided and gave me the perfect platform to have a conversation with the community. 2015 also brought me to a place where I was feeling incredibly disconnected from my community of practice and sustainability after I'd been working zero waste for 4 years and trying my hardest to educate the community around me. I was frustrated and I needed support. I enrolled in the Graduate Diploma in Sustainable Practice at Otago Polytech. This was the only thing locally available to me that had any resonance with sustainability, but it was the best choice I could have made. From that grad dip course, I was introduced to a whole new way of operating and frameworks to understand regeneration and sustainability from a much deeper perspective. This course is now developed into the Bachelor of Leadership for Change, and I highly recommend it. This led me to an experience in Melbourne called the Unschool in 2016, where the disruptive design methodology comes from. About 17 of us spent a week being shown businesses, social enterprises, NGOs that were all doing amazing things for the community, alongside learning about systems mapping and the theory of change. We were put through like a 24/7 week-long experience, which opened us up to more possibilities for how we could implement change in our local spheres. It taught me that experiences are really important for individual understanding, as it creates an emotional connection and awareness of self in space. Res.Awesome has evolved since then as I progressively engage with these 4 frameworks and apply them practically. The first application was through the creation of Stitch Kitchen. In 2013, we found out that there were around 4,000 tonnes of textiles going to Dunedin's landfill annually. Some of that was clothing, some of it is made up of industrial textiles. And there's already a kind of a process that for clothing to be reused a second time through our op shops. It's not a great system by any recommendation, but it's still kind of there. Whereas such a process didn't exist for textiles. This prompted us over the next 2 years to develop concepts, brainstorm and test. Eventually we envisioned a zero waste textile space, and we established a non-profit trust in 2015 to start the process of education. We now have charitable status, which is really awesome. Luckily, we had recently started sharing office space and were able to utilize this to run workshops, store items, and set up a small shared workspace. We tried to create a co-working scenario where others could share sewing tools and resources, but this building was not fit for purpose long term. That whole process has allowed us over the last 5 years to develop a good network and connections with local stakeholders. The workshops allowed us to facilitate shared experiences for people within our community, but ultimately it was a prototype and feasibility process for diverting one stream of resources, textiles. We recently moved into a larger space, which you see here, that was just happened this year, and that's allowing us to refine these processes and create a larger community of practice and wellbeing. This new space has also allowed me to launch the next step in that process and start implementing the next phase of zero waste system development. On August the 22nd, we launched Remade in Dunedin. This is our shared space for remaking and repairing textiles on Dunedin's main street in the historic Prince of Wales Hotel building. And this is where I'm coming to you from today. Over the years, we've done several pop-ups using the Dunedin Dream brokerage to fill empty shops with activations, including our most recent project, the 4KT elephants, where we are making 4,000 elephants to equate to the 4,000 tonnes of waste going to Dunedin's landfill every year. So if you're interested in making one of these, which you can totally do because they're so easy, the instructions are on our website, and they even have individually numbered tags that we can post you so you can join our herd. The community really loved that project and have responded with fervour to our new space. We now have a place to sell our donated haberdashery in our swap shop and run a program of sewing workshops, monthly mending sessions, networking, and we're open 4 days a week to assist the community with any sewing needs. And it is really awesome. This visibility has given us a new perspective on what is possible and opportunities to improve our sorting and processing system for textiles. So this is our old space that we were operating from, and it's quite small. As you can see, we made it beautiful though. Moving into this new studio has allowed me to widen the scope for this vision. And this is where Res.Awesome really begins. Res.Awesome is the current iteration of Res.Awesome and encompasses these wider opportunities and goals. It propels us into the next step of this journey. The first project we're undertaking involves creating a database with the goal of capturing the waste streams and those working in or on them in Otepoti. This baseline step captures the current system to find the real gaps, because we're actually assuming at the moment that some of these major gaps are lack of education, lack of infrastructure and connection with each other and support for each other and the available resources that are currently going to waste. And soon we'll be able to confirm these assumptions because we've almost got that database into least usable state. So to do all of that, we first applied the ABCD framework to establish the process, and that's the database, basically giving us the baseline analysis. And that allows for the network to be built and connection to be established. And once we have those networks and connections in place, we can then facilitate workshops and support for businesses, schools, and communities to access good information and resources, and to inform how council is planning and operating this infrastructure. Our ultimate goal is a creative resource recovery hub and community network that is well resourced and adaptable to community needs, similar to remakeries globally and local solutions such as Wanaka Waste Busters, Extreme Zero Waste, and the Common Unity Project, which we love. We love what everyone who's come before us has been doing, and we thank them for that time and energy and effort that they've been putting into this. So Theory U and Te Whare Tapawha assist us to presence ourselves physically and emotionally and spiritually into this zero waste vision, and it holds us in compassion and honours the people and Papatuanuku. Leading from the space of aroha and heart-centred whole body awareness gives us more capacity to hold space for our community through this transition. The disruptive design methodology is a very experiential learning process, and going through that process in a facilitated space is usually where the aha moments and the ideas come to be fully understood and solidified. So this style of engagement enables the connection and the presence for people to truly unpack and understand those aha moments and ideas. This methodology and style of facilitation is very much in tune with Te Ao Māori and Te Whare Tapawha, as zero waste principles and kaitiakitanga are built into this process so it can be seen, experienced and embodied. The way this methodology works creates a really safe space for people to engage with these ideas and have the difficult conversations that are currently needed in order to acknowledge the problem fully and delve deeply into its systemic nature. Because as people, we totally understand the need to acknowledge and accept a problem, and we can then transition and move through and transmute it. And in these workshops, everyone is open and present and vulnerable, which helps us facilitate and plan actionable steps to disrupt the cognitive biases that exist within society. It is these biases which hold us back from the possibility of change within the systems, within us, and within the community as a whole. These frameworks give us the templates to explore and evolve into the circular system we are so in need of. And you'll see here I've added another framework to the right, which is a Kate Raworth donated economics model, but it's from an Indigenous perspective. And we can see that it really does hold us in that planetary limits and social and environmental justice. And that's really what we're trying to get to here. Ultimately, this comes back to understanding and unpacking all the layers which exist in this interconnected system. We need to use multiple frameworks like the 4 I've talked about today in order to truly understand the system and its complexities, whilst taking into account things such as feedback loops. These frameworks can be used together to conceptualize the wider picture holistically, while also being used separately in relation to various aspects of the system. Alongside this, we must use these multiple frameworks to visualize solutions from different perspectives and worldviews. This openness and understanding from different perspectives is essential in order to come to a more holistic understanding and compromise our way towards an inclusive and all-encompassing solution. So today, I'm inviting you to expand your heart space into a knowing of what is truly possible when we operate from our present selves and allow that to assist us on our journey of discovery within your own community of practice. And I'd just like to leave you with a poem about curiosity. From this wonderful book called Feel a Little, Little Poems About Big Feelings by Jenny Palmer and Evie Kemp. Curious is pointy. You're prickling to know. You have so many questions and many more to go. It's like an itch, a tingle to find out what's behind, to find out who and how and why, and open up your mind. Curiosity is fun. You learn and you explore, discover and invent new things, and then imagine more. All these finds expand your mind, and you can get ahead. When you feel a little bored, get curious instead. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope something that I have shared with you has resonated and that you have found some value in this space. I'd just like to leave you with a little karakia to end. Kia ora. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e he aki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he ho hu, homi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora, thank you so much for joining me.